the two Ferrari drivers was really awesome. But from a strategic point of view, I don't know.
Is that maybe the problem, that the drivers are now feeling like it's just, they're on their own? So they're both going to fight each other because strategy is not clear enough for who must do what, when they must do it, and how much of it they must do. Is it maybe the case that they've just taken, the championship in their own hands?
Yes, I think so. And traditionally, Ferrari, they've got the number one, number two driver set up. But now, because both their drivers are not champions and they're young, up-and-coming drivers, I think there are no team orders and they're allowed to race, which, as I say, as an F1 purist, I really like to see. But they need to apply their minds and be more clever in their approach during the races, especially today, because time's running out.
Someone applying his mind quite well, and he's now becoming Mr. Consistent, is George Russell. I mean, sure, sprint qualifying, DNFs for both of them, but there is that. He's come into the season and he stepped into that car to show that if he had a really good car, we could be talking George Russell competing for the title this season, while Sir Lewis Hamilton continues to struggle. But he's been consistent. DNF or not, he's still up there.
Yes, he's finished every race that he has finished in the top 5. Of course, in the last Grand Prix in Britain, he was involved in the first lap incident where we saw Zhou Guanyu in a terrible accident, which was sort of caused by him. So George is doing extremely well. He's doing what he needs to do, and he's driving that car to the best of his ability.
We'll speak about Mick Schumacher and Sir Lewis Hamilton in a moment, but Guanyu, the halo. The halo is saving lives. We saw Verstappen and Hamilton last season, the halo being involved in their little bust-up. I mean, just speak to us. And Grosjean as well. Yeah. The blessing that is the halo and the brilliance that is whoever introduced it to ensure that we are not talking about dead bodies on the track.
Yeah, the halo was introduced after the death of Jules Bianchi, who was in an accident in 2014 at the Japanese Grand Prix. As an avid Formula One fan, I'll confess, I was not for it. But now I'm all for it. I mean, it really is a lifesaver. Even Charles Leclerc had an accident last year, which the halo actually saved him. So it's a revelation.
Schumacher versus Hamilton. You would think you're talking Michael Schumacher versus Sir Lewis Hamilton, but you're talking about little Mick Schumacher up against Hamilton. Yesterday's little battle was quite interesting. Very.
It's so good to see Mick finally racing for points and in the top 10.
Yeah.
And he showed a lot of maturity because he gave adequate space to Sir Lewis. And Haas were very clever with their strategy because what they did, his teammate was just ahead of him, Kevin Magnussen. So they made sure that he was always within a second so that he could also have DRS, which is why Sir Lewis struggled so much to overtake him. And when he overtook him, it was too late to catch Kevin Magnussen and later Esteban Ocon.
Formula One is the kind of sport that I never want to ask for predictions anymore. Just very quickly before we let you go, as we do every time you are around, just what is Motozar doing in terms of activities for today?
Well, our usual Sundays, we're doing F1 paddock viewing at 011 by the Baron in Santon. It was such a vibe last weekend.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, so I think today is going to be lit as well. Obviously, the excitement of the races makes more ambience.
I think we're going to be seeing a lot of such fan viewing, activities if Kyalami does officially get chosen as a venue for next year as part of course, the 2023 Formula One season. So well done on what it is you guys as Motozar are doing, because you're building that hype that South Africa does have the appetite for Formula One. But
thank you.
We're going to be leaving it there with you. We'll be seeing you again in next race day, of course, as we always do. Lufefe, thank you so much. That is, of course, our very own resident Formula One analyst and, of course, the founder of Motozar TV, Lufefelenkosi Mayekiso. Of course, just breaking down the Austrian Grand Prix. It's happening this afternoon. It's got, of course, Max Verstappen, the champion in pole, and then, of course, the Ferrari duo of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz Jr. looking to beat him to that checkered flag this afternoon. That is where we leave it.